The phone rang just past midnight, its sharp tone cutting through the quiet hum of Sarah's small apartment. She glanced at the caller ID, expecting a wrong number, but instead saw, unknown. Half asleep, she hesitated before answering. "Is this Sarah Whitman?" a calm but urgent voice asked. "This is County General Hospital. Your brother, Daniel Whitman, has been admitted. You're listed as his emergency contact." Sarah froze, gripping the phone tighter. Daniel. The name she hadn't spoken out loud in more than 10 years. A dozen conflicting emotions surged: shock, confusion, and the familiar pang of old anger. Her voice felt stiff as she asked what happened. The nurse explained that Daniel had been in a car accident, was stable but needed someone to make immediate decisions. Her heart thudded in her chest. She hadn't seen him since the night everything fell apart, since the betrayal that had carved a permanent line between them. She had told herself she was done. Done caring, done hurting. And yet, here was his name, breaking into her life again in the quiet hours of the night. The nurse's voice was gentle, patient. "Will you be coming in?" Sarah's lips parted, but no answer came at first. She looked toward the coat hanging by the door, then toward the empty hallway behind her. Slowly, she exhaled, the sound trembling in the silence. "Yes," she said at last. And with that single word, she stepped into a night she never thought she'd face. The streets were nearly empty as Sarah drove through the sleeping city, the glow of streetlights stretching across wet pavement. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles pale against the leather. Every red light seemed to bring another memory rushing back, memories she had spent years trying to bury. She could still see Daniel standing in her kitchen that night, his voice raised, his eyes flashing with the hurt and stubbornness that mirrored her own. Words had been exchanged that could never be taken back. Then came the betrayal, the moment he crossed a line she thought he never would. The fallout had been swift, final. They walked out of each other's lives without looking back. Now, with each mile toward the hospital, Sarah felt the weight of those years pressing against her chest. She told herself she was only going because she was listed as the emergency contact, that it was a matter of duty, not love. But deep down, a quieter truth stirred, one she didn't want to name. The rain began to fall, a light drizzle tapping against the windshield. Sarah glanced at the empty passenger seat, a pang of loneliness hitting her harder than she expected. She wondered if Daniel felt the same, if he had replayed that night in his mind as many times as she had. The hospital's glowing sign appeared in the distance, pulling her from her thoughts. Whether she was ready or not, the past was waiting inside. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, releasing a wave of sterile air and faint antiseptic scent. Sarah stepped inside, her heels clicking against the polished tile as she approached the front desk. The receptionist looked up, her expression professional but kind. "I'm here for Daniel Whitman," Sarah said, her voice low but steady. Within minutes, a nurse appeared and guided her down a quiet corridor, the rhythmic beeping of machines echoing faintly from nearby rooms. When they reached his door, Sarah hesitated in the doorway. The man lying in the hospital bed barely resembled the brother she remembered. His hair was streaked with gray, his skin pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. A thin blanket covered him, and his left arm was wrapped in bandages. But it was his eyes, tired, heavy, yet unmistakably his, that caught her breath when they opened. For a moment, neither spoke. Then his lips curved into the faintest, almost apologetic smile. "I didn't know who else to call," he murmured, his voice hoarse, the words barely carrying across the room. Sarah stepped closer, unsure whether to sit or stand, unsure if her presence was comfort or reminder. She had imagined seeing him again countless times, but never like this, fragile, vulnerable, stripped of the sharpness that had defined their last meeting. Something shifted inside her then, not forgiveness exactly, but the first crack in the wall she had built. She pulled the chair closer and sat down, her fingers curling tightly around the strap of her bag. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence between them, a soft, unrelenting reminder that time was still moving forward. Sarah stared at her brother, searching for traces of the man she once knew beneath the years of distance and resentment. Daniel's gaze drifted to her hands, clenched in her lap, and then back to her face. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, the words quiet but weighted. "For everything. I was young, stupid, and I thought my pride was worth more than our family." His voice cracked on the last word, and for a second, Sarah saw the boy who used to protect her from playground bullies, not the man who had broken her trust. She felt the sting of tears behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to resist softening against her will. She had rehearsed anger for years, told herself that forgiveness would be weakness. But sitting here, seeing him diminished and human in a way he never let her before, she realized something unexpected: forgiveness had arrived before she even made the choice. It wasn't a gift she decided to give, it was something that had quietly settled in her chest the moment she walked through that hospital door. Without speaking, Sarah reached for his hand. His fingers were warm but trembling, clinging to hers as if afraid she might let go. They didn't need to dissect the past anymore. In that quiet moment, the years between them dissolved, replaced by the simple truth that they were still brother and sister. 2 weeks later, the air in Sarah's kitchen was filled with the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee and the low hum of an old radio. Daniel sat across from her at the table, his arms still in a sling, but his face brighter than she'd seen in years. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the space, making everything feel softer, calmer, like they were stepping into a new chapter without needing to say it out loud. They talked about simple things at first: the weather, the neighbors, the bad coffee at the hospital. But slowly, laughter began to slip between their words, tentative at first, then fuller, freer, like it had been waiting in the wings for years. Sarah found herself studying his expressions, noticing how some were exactly the same as when they were kids. At one point, Daniel grew quiet. "I thought I'd have to beg for your forgiveness," he admitted, looking down at his mug. Sarah smiled, shaking her head. "You didn't have to," she said softly. "It found me before I even walked into your room." Daniel's eyes shimmered, but this time with gratitude, not regret. They didn't dwell on the past, there was no need. The weight that had sat between them for over a decade was gone, replaced by something lighter, something they both knew was worth holding on to. For the first time in years, Sarah realized her heart felt whole again. And it was all because forgiveness had found her first.